Hi, and welcome to Dramatic Knits. My name is Steve, also known as Dramatic Knits, and today is Wednesday, October 30th, 2019. This is episode 341. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for joining us one more episode, and if you're new, hopefully you will enjoy this episode and come back in the future. So, we have a full house today. Andy is home having some lunch, and he will be leaving mid-recording to go back to the studio, but I am actually taking a day off for once, though it hasn't felt like it yet. Been a lot of cleaning, doing some cleaning around the house, some laundry, showering, running some errands, and now it is 11 o'clock in the morning and I'm finally sitting down to record. But the nice thing is, after this, I get to relax the rest of the day other than make some dinner, which is a chore for me. I don't enjoy cooking, but it is what it is. So, yeah, it's been a couple of weeks since we've seen each other. We have been on the road the past 2 weeks, and boy, are we glad to be home. Even if it is just for 4 days, it's going to be nice. But then we're only gone for 2 and then back for 2 weeks. So I'm glad things are slowing down just a little bit. Anyway, how have you been in the past 3 weeks? Good, I hope. Hopefully you are acclimating well to the cooler temperatures moving in. We are supposed to get the big S word tomorrow there's a chance of it at least. Tomorrow's Halloween, and yes, they are forecasting some rain into snow tomorrow. So I know Northern Illinois got some snow yesterday and what have you, but I'm not ready for that yet. I like the cooler weather, though today it's raining, so it's kind of gloomy and bleh. But nothing better than my new cardigan that I got from Target on the road, and it is super comfy and baggy, and I am all snuggled up in it. I will be putting on PJ pants, but I actually did put on jeans for you today. Mostly for you, somewhat for going out and running errands. Anyway, so where have we been in the last 3 weeks? I don't know. I'm trying to think of what was the last event we did before, since I've last recorded. Yeah, no, we recorded once I got back from Stitches Salt Lake. So we then left on Tuesday, the 15th, and drove most of the way to Saugerties, New York. We stayed about 2 hours out. And then Wednesday morning, or Thursday morning, we got up and we drove the rest of the way and we set up for Indie Untangled, which is a pre-Rhinebeck event trunk show for a lot of independent businesses in the crafting community that may not get into Rhinebeck or may not want to do Rhinebeck but want to be part of the festivities. So we were lucky enough to be accepted to vend at that, and it was at the Saugerties Performing Arts Center again, which is a beautiful location. It's a little hidden away, not great parking. There's issues with it, but it is a really nice location for the event. So it was nice to have all day to set up. In fact, we were done early. We then drove to the house we were renting with some of our friends, including Amber the Yarn Hoarder, Corey, I Rock Knits. Both of them have a podcast. Stacy Knits, Matt, Multi-Crafty Guy, and Renee, Nitroverted. We, all 7 of us, stayed in a beautiful, restored, renovated barn in Woodstock, New York, and so we were the first ones to arrive at the house. We, in fact, went out to a nice, fancy Italian dinner on Thursday. It was good food, pricey, but the service was very, very slow. It took us over 2 hours to get through our dinner, and most of that was waiting for our check. So, but it was really good. And then we got up Friday and we vended at Indie Untangled. It was a wonderful event. They added another shopping time, so there were 4 2-hour time slots plus pre-shopping for vendors and volunteers. So that was great. It was a very long day because we had to tear down on Friday night. So we were done about 8 o'clock. We grabbed some food, headed back to the house, and I crafted for a little bit, and then we went to bed. we got up early, and on Saturday we went to Rhinebeck. And boy, it was a lot of fun. Knowing what to expect is a lot better to prepare yourself for the crowds and things like that. But it was a lot of just meeting and saying hi to people and interacting with meeting new friends, interacting with people who watch the podcast. Thank you so much if you came up and said hi. Interacting with people who use Leading Men Fiber Arts or had met us at India Entangled. So while I did walk through most of the barns and buildings, I only made one small purchase, and I will show you that later on. I'm working through all my stash enhancement and acquisitions, so that'll be coming in a few episodes. But I was hoping to get a Sweater's Lot of Yarn. That did not happen, but it was a good time had by all. We stayed till almost close on Saturday, and then we drove back to Woodstock, and we went out downtown Woodstock, and we had a wonderful Mediterranean meal, and came back and crafted. And then we got up on Sunday, and Andy and I drove to the festival. He came with me on Sunday. He did not come on Saturday. And it started to rain, and again, I had seen most of the festival, so we watched the Leaping Llamas contest, and then we kind of wrapped it up. We did a little bit of walking around, and then we ended up heading back to the house earlier than the rest of the group. I took a nap, which was lovely, and then they came back, and eventually we just ordered calzones and pizzas into the house, and we sat and we relaxed and enjoyed each other's company because it was our last night together. So it was a great time. I'm so glad that the group invited us to join them, and hopefully we will have that opportunity again. Monday morning we got up. By the time I got into the shower, I knew we were the last ones who had to leave, so I didn't get to see anybody before they left because I was like, well, what's the point of putting on clothes just to get showered again? So I just relaxed in bed. And Andy and I hit the road, and we spent the next 2 days driving down to Asheville, North Carolina. And it was really nice because it was about 11 and a half hours. But we split that up over 2 days. So really we only had to drive like 5-6 hours a day. We were able to check into hotels at like 3 o'clock, take a nap, get up and have dinner, relax, watch TV. Usually we drive until we're pretty exhausted, and then we just get into the hotel and go to sleep. So that was kind of nice. We stayed about an hour out from the event. So we were ready to go on Wednesday. We could start setting up. So we took our time checking out of the hotel because we couldn't be in there till noon. So we drove to Fletcher, North Carolina, which is right outside of Asheville. And we checked in, but they weren't really ready for vendors to start setting up. So we went and did a little bit of shopping and went and had some lunch, and we came back and we set up, and we got most of the way set up on Wednesday. We then had Thursday as well to set up. So we got up Thursday, took our time, and finished setting up Thursday morning. And then, we kind of got some lunch and got some sub sandwiches, enough for dinner. And we went back to the hotel and took a nap. And I just crafted my night away, which was really, really nice to not feel so rushed and exhausted before an event. So SAF, which stands for Southeastern Animal Fiber Festival, is a three-day event, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There was some last-minute changes as there was a building change. We had to move from one arena to another due to some health issues dealing with Legionnaire's disease in the original arena. They feel like they've tracked down what the issue was, but they still wanted to give it another testing before they would have another event in there. So they moved it to their old location, the old arena, and did the old setup. It was an interesting experience, but we actually had a really good location in that arena. We were in the back corner, so we weren't crowded, and it worked out really well. Thank you to everybody who came up at SAF and said hi. It was lovely to see you and meet you. And those of you who wore your Leading Men Fiber Arts, thank you so much and appeasing us by letting us take photos. That's something that we are actually considering doing promotional work with next year at events. So stay tuned for that. So, we packed up on Sunday afternoon. We drove about 2 hours and we stayed right outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And we got a hotel, the same hotel as our friends Anna and Antoinette of Black Cat Fibers. So we didn't get to see them that evening. We passed them on the road, but we did get up really super early, like 6 o'clock, and had breakfast together. And then we went our separate ways. They're from Milwaukee, so they had a few more hours than we did. We got back Sunday afternoon, and we went right to unloading the van and printing off things we needed to print off and answer emails, and we haven't stopped since then. So I'm happy to take today off. Andy is taking tomorrow off, and then we hit the road on Friday morning to head back down to Tennessee. But I'll talk about that later. So that's pretty much been my 2 weeks. It's been travel, nothing too exciting. I've got some progress to show you, but not as much as I'd like. All the other crafts really haven't seen any love other than last night, because I haven't been home and I don't travel with them. So hopefully you'll bear with me in the slight lack of progress, but it is what it is. All right, so tomorrow's Halloween. Are you dressing up? I'm not. My local yarn store, which I need to go to drop off next month's order, the new colorway, is having an event called Knit and Treat. So they're just doing an open knit night on Halloween night. And I was like, good way to escape the kids. We don't really pass out candy anyway, so I don't have to deal with the doorbell ringing or people walking by and the dogs barking. I can get out of the house, drop off the order, and enjoy some knitting. So I'm going to knit and treat tomorrow. All right, so let's get to the show notes so that I can know what I'm talking about. That would be important, wouldn't it? All right, I have nothing taking about this episode. I did not finish anything. I seem to be knitting with all the thin yarns. It is what it is. But I will show you what's performing this episode. So first off is my Alpine blanket, knit out of Sirdar Alpine in the Brindle colorway on size 15 US 10 millimeter needles. And I just finished, let me count how many balls I have left. So remember, I bought a third bag of this yarn, so I have 30 skeins that I can put into this. There are 7 left, so that I finished the 23rd skein. And here's where we're at. So there's the bottom, and if it's touching the floor, it comes right up to here. So again, I debated 25, but I might just put all 30 in here, because especially when you lay it, it's pretty wide too. So I wanted the coziest, most luxurious blanket ever. But that does not travel with me, so it gets a little bit of love here and there. Again, that's 23 balls of that in that blanket so far, 7 more to go. So next up is my Plaid Please by Amy Miller. This is a knit-along that my local yarn store, Les Moutons Rouges Knittery in Bloomington, Illinois, is hosting. And I am using Rowan Kid Silk Haze in Cream, Trance, and Candy Girl. And on a size 6 US 4 millimeter needle. And I did get quite a bit of love on this while we were traveling. So this is knitting with this lace weight silk mohair blend by itself. And here's where it's at. Now, you could say, hey Steve, look at your second stripe. It doesn't match the other two. Yeah, so funny story. My good friend Deb, last time I was at knitting, she was there, and she was knitting on hers, and she realized she did the same thing while knitting at our retreat, which she attended. She messed up her stripes. So rather than tinking back, I am just going to, there's 7 total stripes before you put the vertical stripes in, which is done with a crochet hook. So what I'm going to do is, this is 1, this is 2, I'll do 3, 4, and 5 normal, then 6 will have a single stripe, and 7 will be normal again. That way it'll give it symmetry. So that's going. It does shed like the dickens. But very mindless, easy stockinette knitting, that's all it is. So great travel and on the go. All right, next up is my Stranger Strings wrap by Julia Decker. I'm knitting this as a sample for Leading Men Fiber Arts. Eventually there will be kits in the shop and on the road. I am more than halfway done with it now, so that's exciting. Using Leading Men Fiber Arts Showstopper in Darkest Hour and Showstopper Gradient in OMG Neons, along with a Glow Stick Mini. Again on a size 6, 4mm needle. I'm still on my first skein of black, but I'm almost done with it. So, oh yeah, and I was knitting on this when we arrived home. So I'm in the middle of a row, but that shouldn't affect how I'm... Look at that! And then it starts going in reverse. So you can see I'm halfway through a row, but I had to pack up. But what's really cool is when you hold it, it's almost like illusion knitting to a certain... Look at that. So. Woo! I'm really excited for this, and I'm excited to be showcasing it. So stay tuned for progress on that. Once you get the hang of it, it is a super easy mindless knit as well. It's a lot of what I have going on, but that's where my brain is these days. But I'm itching to cast on a sweater, and I already know what color I'm going to use. It's a new colorway coming in December, but I can't show you till then, so... All right, next up for me is Riverine. This is by Teresa Gaffey. I picked up yarn and the pattern for this at Woolen Company in St. Charles, Illinois. This is on a size 5 US, which is a 3.75mm needle. And it calls for 3 skeins of Shibui, Shibui Pebble, Silk Cloud, and Seema. I have finished the skein of Pebble. And this is all stockinette and garter done on the bias. So the Pebble is what you start out with. And that's like a silk linen mix maybe. And then you start gartering in the Seema, which I think has alpaca in it. And then you're doing those until I'm now done with the Pebble. And then you start stockinetting with the, look at that, I made it into a verb, with the Silk Cloud, which is a silk mohair blend. So I'm doing, for somebody who does not like silk mohair, I'm sure knitting a lot with it, and I got some in Stash Enhancement. You won't see it today, but you'll see it in the future. Excuse me, I'm still starting with my first cup of coffee. So once this blocks, it will look really nice. And I love how they play with the simple textures, but they're letting the texture and the look of their yarns do the design for you. They're essentially what the design is. So I'm going to continue working on this. I'm still watching a show from last night that I need to finish, and I'll work on that here once I hit the stop record button on here. And then last but not least, I did finish a row of my granny square blanket. I think since I've shown it last, so I thought I would show you that really quickly. But again, I need to move back to show you that. So when you're looking, look at the top full row and then these 3 squares that I've added here in the last couple of days. So these are 3 that I added since we've been home, I think. Well, at least these last 2. And then I'll show you these squares from the last row. Again, I do a 5-round granny square using fingering or sport weight, using a C hook, and then I use the join as you go method. I'm using a bare skein of our soliloquy base, which is 100% superwash BFL, as I know it'll be a sturdy yarn to hold the blanket together. This one I used Showstopper and mohair. If you remember, I did a boomerang out of this earlier this year, so I held those together. And this one's self-striping. So here's where we're at. I think I'm starting the 10th row, maybe? And I am in love with this blanket. I am so happy with it. I love the bordering. I love the symmetry of it. It looks like a quilt. And for randomly picking the colors, I think for the most part they are playing out really cool. So, and I love that I buy a lot of mini skeins, but I use my scraps, and I can buy mini skeins in about any color, not just ones that I knit in all the time. And so those can add in a lot of other pops of color that you may not see if I was purely using scraps. So very, very happy with that. All right, let's move into what's in rehearsal. I don't have anything necessarily on the needles. Like I said, I think for me, the next two things I see on my needles are out of Leading Men Fiber Arts. I'm wanting to do Mountain Mist by Tin Can Knits. And I also will probably be doing Amba O'Brien's Knit Advent knit along. And we do have a lineup for the 2019. It's not an advent calendar, advent set. So last year we did this really late in the game, but this year I'm trying to be a little bit sooner in it. But keep an eye out on Facebook and Instagram and all our social medias, as we will be putting out, releasing those, I believe, around November 15th, so that you will have them in time before the start of Advent, so that you can join along and use this set. It's not packaged, it's not a mystery, but that keeps the price down for you. Yeah, you kind of know how the colors will play out and all that stuff. Because a lot of people, while they like the Advents, let's be honest, most of them just open them all in one get-go. And so I'm like, why not be able to play along at a cheaper price by not paying for all that cute packaging and all that stuff? So I've written out the list. I started dyeing some of the minis yesterday. There will be 25 minis in there, and yeah, super excited. So I picked that out while at SAF this year. My spinning behind the scenes, I'm still spinning Hidden Valley Farm and Woolen Mills, 75% Coopworth, 25% mohair, roving in the Cypress Moss colorway. I have just a little bit left of the second 4 ounces. It was an 8-ounce ball of it, and here's the first 4 ounces. So I am going to be plying here soon, so I should have some finished hand spun to show you next episode. My cross stitch has gotten barely any love, so there's that. But I'm cross stitching a Heaven and Earth design called One for Sorrow, but I will show you that a little bit later. We have a guest who'd like to join us. Oh, say hi, Ernest. They're getting groomed next week because they're starting to get that like low flow shower head, super droopy. They've had baths, but since their last grooming, but when we can't see his eyes anymore, that's when we're like, okay, good gauge to take him in to get groomed. Weaving, I should have a finished scarf to show you. I'm almost done with my weft yarn. I am weaving a Sangria and Bahama Mama scarf using our showcase base, which is discontinued, but we do have some available in our shop for 40% off. In the Sangria and Bahama Mama colorways. Bahama Mama's been discontinued, so I'm working on that. Yes, I am. And then let's move into the spotlight. What are we watching and reading? So I'm still watching season 5 of How to Get Away with Murder. A couple of episodes here or there. We did finish season 1 of The Righteous Gemstones. It's one of those comedies that sometimes I'm like, it's so socially awkward that it makes me feel uncomfortable. But it still was funny. I did laugh out loud and we did enjoy it. So I believe that's through HBO or Showtime. One of the two. All right, he wants down now. Oh, okay. I'm watching The Masked Singer, and I'm really enjoying it. I caught up with the episode 4 last night. So there's some good performances on there, so I'm enjoying it. I got back into Handmaid's Tale. So we're in season 2. Andy's like, you know what? I just can't anymore. He's just like, he's like, I tried. I don't want to watch it. So I just dropped it for the longest time, but I'm like, you know what? I can watch it on my own. We've been doing some solo viewing in other rooms. So that's what I started watching an episode of that last night. I need to finish that while working on my Riverine. We did start the first episode of a Netflix series called The Politician. This stars, what's his name? I don't know his name. But Gwyneth Paltrow's in it. Jessica Lange is in it. The guy who was in Dear Evan Hansen and the original Broadway cast was in it. He did sing. Maybe we watched 2 episodes. He did sing in the last episode we watched, and he was amazing. So totally enjoy that. It's funny and moving all at the same time. While we were on the road 2 different nights, we watched Annabelle because I wanted to start watching it, but I didn't finish because I was getting tired and Andy fell asleep. So the next night we were in a different hotel and it was back on again. So we finished watching it. And that's part of the Conjuring series with The Nun, The Conjuring, and there's a whole Annabelle series too. So it was okay. And then I did finish listening to a book called The Consumption of Magic. This is Tales of Verania, Book 3 by T.J. Klune. And this is one that I've talked about before, dealing very snarky, very sarcastic wizards and knights and talking gay unicorns without a horn. If you are easily offended or have a delicate sensibility, I do not suggest you listen or read this book, but I am going to read for you the synopsis in case it sounds interesting. So, by the way, this is rated 4.64 stars on Goodreads, and it goes, here's the synopsis. Sam of Wilds faced the dark wizard Mirren and lived to tell the tale. Granted, the battle left him scarred, but things could be a hell of a lot worse. It's not until he reunites with Morgan of Shadows and Randall that he realizes just how much worse things could be. Because the scars have meaning and a hint at Mirren's true plans for Sam and the kingdom of Verania. With time running out, Sam and his band of merry misfits, the Unicorn Gary, the half-giant Tiggy, Knight Commander Ryan Foxheart, and the dragon known as Kevin, must travel to the snowy mountains in the north and the heart of the dark woods to convince the remaining dragons to stand against Mirren. Along the way, Sam learns secrets of the past that will forever change the course of the future. A reckoning is coming for Sam of Wilds, and there is nothing he can do to stop it. So, that is book 3. There is a book 4, which is A Wish Upon the Stars, which I will eventually listen to, but I need to give myself a break. I do love the narrator of this. It is one of the best narrators that I've ever listened to, and because I'm on Goodreads, it doesn't tell me who narrated it, but that's all right. He does his accents in different voices so very well. So I highly recommend that if you like a good snarky fantasy male-on-male romance. Alrighty then, so moving back to show notes. Stash enhancement. So, as promised, I'm only going to focus on 3 people that I have enhanced my stash from. I'm still working off the vendor market from Knitting at the Estate. We're still in the library. We had 2 different locations of the market. So, continuing in my going around the room, the first this episode is Suburban Stitcher, who is Diane, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Diane several times at several different events, mostly at the Zombie Apocalypse in Rochester, Minnesota, where we both vend. And she took a chance and came down and not only vended at our retreat, but also went to the retreat as well, which I think she had a really good time. So she brought DK and fingering, and I was like, you know what? I do not need more fingering, so let's go with heavier weights. And I picked out a trio of DK weight yarns, and I'm planned to knit the Odyssey shawl by Joji Locatelli out of this. So the first one I picked up, this is on her Merino DK, by the way, which is 100% superwash merino, 250 yards to 115 grams. So this is the same as our Dramaturg. So if you want to mix and match, that's a good option for you. This is the one I initially picked up, and this is called Pilgrimage, which is a gray with speckles of forest green, avocado, like a saffron orange, which turns into gold, and it's just beautiful. She originally dyed this as a house gift for the people who were rooming with Amber Yarn Hoarder on her Rhinebeck trip 2 years ago, which was the same group that I roomed with this time, but we expanded the house to include a few more guests. So I really liked this, and then I wanted to pick out 3 colors to go with it. So I picked out, same base, the Chicory colorway and the Dirty Martini colorway. So These are going to make the Odyssey shawl in this order by Joji Locatelli. So thank you, Diane, for dyeing some amazing yarn. And then across the doorway in the corner from them were our friends at the the Black Sheep Yarn and Fiber, which is a local yarn store in Noblesville, Indiana. And we do a trunk show there every 6 months or so. We're going to be there, in fact, in a couple of weeks, right after Thanksgiving. And they brought an array of tools and yarn from their shop. And Karen and Marina, Karen's the mom, Marina's the daughter, they both run the shop. And I picked up 2 skeins of this Queensland Uluru Rainbow, which is a colorful cotton blend. It's 100 grams, 382 yards, 49% cotton, 43% acrylic, and 8% polyamide. And these are long color changing colors. So I got both of these. These are 2 different colors. And I got these to do like a chevron-y or a wiggle scarf where you alternate the skeins and it looks really cool. So I really like how you can see like the cotton and acrylic through it. And so I got 2 of these to do one of those scarves. And then right next to Black Sheep was, Un Besito Fiber Arts. And Andy went shopping at this booth for me. He got a mini skein, which is already in my mini skein basket, but then he picked up a skein of her self-striping yarn, which I did not know that she did. And this is her self-striping Tough Love sock yarn in the Rainbow Glow colorway. This is 450 yards of a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and then a 20-gram mini of the colorway Rain. So I'm not sure who these socks will be for or what I will do with them, but I thought this was really cool. So he picked that up, and that is Un Besito Fiber Arts. She is on Etsy, and I will link to her on the show notes. So those are my 3 highlights for stash enhancement this episode. I hope you liked what you saw, and you'll visit those vendors' shops. All right, we have a giveaway this episode, and this is for some Rowan Kid Silk Haze, 4 skeins of it, because I'm like, hey, I'm knitting with all of the mohair silk blends. Let's give away some, because I was graciously donated this. So you will get 3 skeins of the cream colorway and 1 of the Candy Girl colorway. So 4 skeins in total, 200 grams. Each ball is 230 yards, so you have 920 yards of a lace weight that you could do with this. And the thread is already posted on our Ravelry group. You must be a member of the Dramatic Knits video podcast group to be eligible. Only 1 post per person, and you must enter the prompt on the giveaway thread. The prompt is, what's the most crucial thing for a healthy relationship? And that can be a romantic relationship or a friendship or even a co-working relationship. But what is, to you, what's the most crucial thing for a healthy relationship? And that'll get you entered to win 4 skeins of Rowan Kid Silk Haze. You must enter before I record again on November 10th, I believe is when I'll be recording. On that Sunday is at least my plan. So I will close down that thread once I sit down to record. And yeah, so. All right, let's move into Inside the Knitter Studio. This is where you get to ask me a question in our Q&A thread on our Ravelry group, and I will work down through those questions as they come, 1 question per episode. So this episode, the question comes from M. Miller Cruz, and they ask, do you miss teaching? With audiobooks being so popular, do you see a use for them in education? So I get asked this a lot on the road, do I miss teaching? And my honest answer is no. I feel that I was very good at teaching. I feel like my personality, however, my inner personality, my introvertedness did not do well. It wore on me after the 8 years, and knowing that I could make a living doing something else where I still get to interact with the public, but I get to spend a lot of time just being me and not being Teacher Steve all the time does a lot better for me. So there are a lot of things I miss about teaching, but I do not miss the act of performing as teacher 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and then doing planning and grading on top of it. So, however, audiobooks being so popular, I used audiobooks in my classroom all the time. I worked with a very... most of our students that I worked and taught were low income, came from not the best households, and came from families in which, their education and reading level may not be the highest as well. So telling a student to go home, even at my honors level, telling them to go home and read so much didn't work. And even if I wanted to challenge them and I would start doing reading quizzes, I taught for 8 years. I tried everything, doing reading quizzes, and then their grades would go down. And then I'm getting brought in by administration asking why my grades are so low. And I get to telling, well, we're doing a novel study and they're not reading. And then it gets put on me to find a solution. So the solution is, if they're not going to read, you need to read it in class. So we would listen to audiobooks a lot. And the thing to question as a teacher is, what are you going for? Are you going for the act of reading and the act of comprehension? Or are you going for critical thinking and story relevance and plot and things of that nature? Because those are two very different very different approaches. You do not have to physically read a book. You can listen to the story in order to comprehend and start thinking about and critically thinking about a novel's or a story or a written piece of text structure, their theme, their message, their plot structure. But if you are trying to go for grammar and syntax and sentence structure and illusion and your wording and things like that, you want to be actually reading words and writing words. So a good teacher is going to hopefully mix a bunch of different approaches to teaching. Not everybody has the same learning style as well. So when you are not working one-on-one with students, you need to be bringing in a variety of learning styles and teaching approaches to your classroom so that every student has an equal opportunity to learn. So getting off of my old teaching soapbox, see, it just started coming right out again. But anyway, stepping down now. Thank you, M. Miller Cruz, for that question. And if you have not asked me a question, please hop on over to our Q&A thread on our Ravelry group and ask me a question, and I will get to it as the order follows. All right. Last episode, we did a giveaway for a number of things. There was a goodie bag from Fiber Fun and the Sip, which included a Noro magazine, as well as some other accoutrement. The Needle Cozy and Ball Sack from Pete Moss Designs, and some stitch markers and a Progress Keeper from Ella Bella Beads. And the prompt last episode was, what was the last book you read? I used a random number generator to pull for a winner before I sat down to record, and it selected number 70, who is Holly Quilt MI, and that is Holly, I'm assuming, from Michigan. And the last book she read was Station 11. She said she loved it, and it made her thankful for everything. So congratulations, Holly. You have won that goodie bag. It'll probably be separated down so that I can fit it in mailing. But if you would, please direct message me on Ravelry with your first and last name, mailing address, and an email address so I can provide you shipping on that prize. And I will get it out to you as soon as I can. Alrighty, I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee. And then I have one thing in my bag right over here that I have to get up and get because I forgot it, even though it's in my show notes. and I hope everything is in here. It's been a couple weeks since I got it, and I forgot to talk about it last episode, and I told the owner I would, and so I have not played around with this yet, as I do not have a project need for it, but I was approached by the owner of Knit Assist, and I'm sorry if you hear whining. Ernest has been super vocal and needy as of late, and I think it's because we've been gone so much, but anytime one of us leaves or goes into another room, he is a whiny pants. And Andy left right after I started recording about 5 minutes in, and so he's just been like, where's Andy? Where did he go? I want to go. Plus, they didn't go to the studio today because I'm here, so that's off-putting for them. But anyway, I met Kim, who is the owner of Knit Assist. This is a brand new company. And this is a brand new item which has been patented and trademarked. And this is a knitting ring that tensions and separates 2 strands of yarn for doing color work and brioche. Here is her information, her card. She is out of Wyoming, and she 3D prints these rings. And what I really like about them is I've seen knitting rings that separate the yarn for you. This one tensions it. And she showed me this really cool trick. I don't know a whole lot about brioche, but I do know that when you, she was showing me in brioche, you need to flip your dominant colors. And this is a simple fix to do that. So you get a couple of things, 2 different things when you buy these. They are available on her website, I believe. And she's going to be looking to expand these eventually. But you get a 3D printed ring stand. And you want it to fit just like right here, kind of, where you would tension your yarn, which for me would be, I'm a thrower, so it'd be on this side. And what's nice is it does fit. Don't mind my dry, cracked hands. That's part of the job of being my hands in water. But the ring does separate. So what's nice is you kind of have a large, she has different sizes, but they can fit a wide range of fingers. So she gave me the largest ring. And then it comes with this 3D little box contraption, which the top comes right off, and then there's a series of tongs, and then the hole which the ring goes on. So the ring goes right in there, and the ring is tensioned. So if you see here, right at the top here, when I put this on, it doesn't just slide off because of these top 2 pieces. You actually have to squeeze them on to get them off, okay? And then this top piece sits on the top, and then it doesn't come off. And what you do is you take, again, you want to squeeze to get the top off as well. What you do is you take your 2 strands of yarn. So let me find 2 strands of yarn really quickly. And because you're working through the yarns here, you can wrap it around and tension it as much as you would like to give as much tension. So I kind of wrapped it around 2 of those posts and have it come out. And then I can take, say, this mohair here, and again, I'm just wrapping it around a couple of posts. And you will figure out after using it for a little bit how much tension you want on your yarns and how you want to position the ring. So I've tensioned the 2 yarns around the posts. They're both coming out the front. And then, Steve, what did you do at the top? Oh, I put the yarn on top of it. Black on a black mouse pad does not work. So then, and then you encase it in there. And then notice how this is coming straight on. I'm going to want to angle this a little bit. So if I squeeze this and take the box off, maybe. It's harder to do. I got to take the ring off. Really, once you get it set up, it's not that hard, but okay. So my mohair got detension, but that's okay. Retension that really quickly, put the top back on. And then put my ring on. So now, if you look, I have it angled, so both yarns are coming out this way, like how I would want it for knitting, okay? And what's really cool is you're now holding both yarns separated, and you can throw or pick, and it's tensioned as it comes through here. That's what I really like, is that it's tensioned. I don't have to just kind of pick up and drop, and it's not just a ring that, you know, holds the two strands. You can tension it with as much tension as you want. Now, here's the other really cool thing. So she was talking about switching your dominant colors, and she said at the end of a brioche row, you want to switch your dominant colors. What you can do is simply take the box off and switch it over, and then, now I put it on the wrong way. But you can just flip it. You don't have to actually, and then you're changed which one is your dominant color. So I thought that was really cool. She gave me one of these to try out. When I have my next color work project on it, I will be able to give you a fuller review. But if you are interested in this, you can visit her at knitassist.bigcartel.com. She has an Instagram at knitassist.com and knitassist@hotmail.com to email her for more future questions and things. I will link her in the show notes, but yeah, definitely give her a look if you're interested, if you do a lot of color work. She said right now these are retailing about 3 weeks, or I'm sorry, I'm reading an email. Usually these are running about $40 right now, and you pick your ring size, and then you get the 3D printed color work tensioner box. So it comes in a nice little muslin bag. So thank you, Kim, for letting me review one of those. Hopefully you will check out our website, and I will give you more of a review once I get my next color work project on the needles, which honestly, we'll see when that happens, but I do have some in my queue, so. All right. That being said, let's get rid of this now, separate these yarns back out. All right, moving right along. So, our October 2019 Race to the Finished Object contest is still going through tomorrow, so I am not picking a prize yet. You can post anything you finish this month into that thread, and that everything that you post, each finished object is a separate post that gets you an entry into the drawing. We will have a wonderful prize from our prize pool, as well as a pattern from our featured designer, who is Jen Lucas. This is her last month, and next month we will have a new featured designer, which I will talk about next episode. So that's awesome. Thank you, Jen, for being featured. Center Stage, I forgot to bring it home with me, but we will have a new colorway premiering on Friday, and that is called Street Art. If you were at Indie Untangled and you got one of the goodie bags, or you ran into me at Rhinebeck, you got a little sample of this new colorway coming out in November. It's kind of a gray with like blue, gold, and pink speckles in it. It reminds me a lot of kind of that sidewalk chalk art that people do, so I'm super excited about that. I think it's a really pretty color. In fact, we're having a sweater sample done up in it, one of Joji Locatelli's patterns done up in it, so that just went out yesterday to our sample knitters, so super excited about that. Unfortunately, I forgot it, so stay tuned to our social media on Friday and check out our shop. You will have 1 week to pre-order as much as you want on any base that you want, and we will, of course, do sock kits as well. Just so you know, we will be doing our year in review sets in January. We're already in thoughts of that. I talked about our It's Not an Advent calendar sets coming out in mid-November. I have a new kit premiering at our event this weekend, and that is for the Refraction shawl, which I showed you before by Jen Lucas, which features 2 gradients. Those will be premiering at Fiber in the Borough this weekend. Fiber in the Borough is this Saturday in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and that is on November 3rd from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We will be in the arena, in the corner of the arena. And so we're driving down early Friday morning. We'll get there Friday afternoon and set up, and then vend on Saturday, get a few hours on the road, back home on Saturday, and finish driving on Sunday, and then back to work. But then we have the following weekend off. Super excited. So that's kind of what's been going on in our lives. If you are not following us on Instagram and or Facebook, we hope you will do so. We also have a Leading Men Fiber Arts Ravelry group. We also have the Dramatic Knits podcast Ravelry group, where you should become a member of both, but especially with the podcast, if you want to enter any of our drawings or knit-alongs, you need to be a member to be eligible to win. As always, you can find the podcast on YouTube, the Ravelry group, and our website, which is dramaticknits.com, which is where I list all of our show notes, and you can find links to everything that I talked about and referred to in today's episode. So, I hope you have a great week and a half until November 10th or so, when I will see you again. But until then, I hope you knit something dramatic.